Family history fun, my terrible jokes, how to use newspapers to research historical events, and how to start your family tree using some basic records. Stick around for all this and more this Findmypast Friday.
Welcome to Friday's Live.
Hello there, everybody. How are you? Welcome back to Friday's Live. It's that time of the week where we take a look at some new family history records. We talk about your family history. We give you tips and tricks, and it's very, very chilled. It's very, very relaxed. My name is Ellie. I'm social media manager here at Findmypast, and yeah, we do these broadcasts every Friday, and we have a host of hosts. Can we say that? A host of hosts. I told you, terrible jokes. More less than a minute in. This is a good start. But yeah, welcome everybody. Welcome to our regular viewers. Please do say hi in the comments. Tell me how you are, how your week's been, how your research is going, where you're tuning in from, what the weather's like with you, all of that. If you're new, we absolutely don't bite. We are a really friendly bunch. So please don't be shy. Tell me where you're tuning in from today. Tell me a little bit about you, about your family history. I want to hear all of it. And I do have a really packed agenda for you guys today. I have been fiercely prepping for this. I started was it yesterday lunchtime? I normally am terrible and I leave my prep until sort of Friday morning, but I knew I didn't have time this Friday morning, so I started yesterday. And I have so much fun stuff for you this week. I don't have a guest for you, sadly, but we do have more guests coming up in the next couple of weeks. So next week, fingers crossed, Jen should be back. And I believe we have a very special guest organised for you next week. It's one you are absolutely not going to miss. And then the week after, we are hoping to have our favourite product team duo, Martin and Chris, back to talk all about newspapers and upcoming product features and things like that. So yeah, lots of exciting things coming for you. And I'm also emailing a partner of ours at the moment and trying to arrange a joint live broadcast, live session for you guys as well. So yeah, working on lots of things, very busy, but I like being busy, so that's absolutely fine. And of course, my Friday is made even better by being able to talk to all of you. So yes, welcome. That's my spiel. In terms of what we're going to do today, we are going to do some new records. We are going to do question of the week, and I will tell you what it is in just a moment. And then we are going to do how to research a historical event in newspapers. That's going to be really fun. Not that the event that I've chosen is particularly fun. It's actually quite sad, but I'm then going to wrap up with something a little bit more fun and more upbeat. We're going to wrap up with using British India Office records to start your family tree. And I've picked a very particular example that I thought wasn't in my family tree, but actually is my family tree. It turns out to be a relative. It's just so happens. But yeah, I thought we'd finish up with that a little bit more upbeat. So that'll be good. We've got Liam in the comments with us as well. He is going to be replying to your questions and things like that. So if you need anything, any issues, any links, he is your guide today. Liam started off in the customer support team like I did many years ago, and he's now in the brand team with me, and he works with me on social media and community, and he's doing such an amazing job. And I just want to get that out there. Like, he's doing some incredible work. And I'm just very, very grateful for him. He was, Liam, I think you took a week off for your birthday because he turned 30 last month. And by the end of the week, I was like, I need him back. Where is he? But yeah, so thank you for everything that you do, Liam. And yeah, question of the week is, I do have the banner here. I have prepped it for you. Spring is in the air. How do you spring clean your research? What is your process for tidying it up and staying organized? I'm really, really keen to hear your top tips, tricks, hacks on this, because I feel like I need to do this myself. So it's actually quite a self-absorbed, selfish question of the week for me this week, but I'm hoping everybody will get some use out of it. So that is question of the week. And I apologize if you're on the other side of the world and it's not spring in the air for you, but it still sort of applies. How are you staying organized with your family history research? That's what I want to know. Lovely. Let's welcome some of you guys here. There's lots of you here today. This is lovely. It's Jan. Hello, Jan. Lovely to hear from you. We've got Robin. Looking forward to today. Love newspapers. Me too. I have spent most of my week looking at newspapers for various purposes, and it's so easy. Like, I'll sit down and start looking at things, and suddenly it's like, oh, it's time to finish work now. This is my job. I get paid to do this. Like, I'm very, very, yeah, I have a great job. Georgia, hi from a damp and chilly Essex. Typical bank holiday weather. Oh yeah, I want to hit all of your bank holiday plans as well. Not that I get one. Liam and I don't get one because we're in Scotland, but that's fine. We'll be working. David joining us from Toronto. Hello. Who else have we got here? Victoria, it's been chucking it down all day in Suffolk. Our garden is happy. Oh, only the garden is happy. Yeah, I get that. It's sometimes nice to watch the rain. If you're inside and you're all cozy and you don't really need to go out, it's quite nice just to watch it. Or is it just me? I actually quite like the rain, as long as it's not freezing and windy at the same time. I don't like it. Hello, Matthew. Raining in Watford. Oh, do you know, it was beautiful here in Edinburgh this morning, and then it sort of clouded over a bit, and the Har keeps coming back, the sea mist that comes in off the Forth, and it's it's looking a bit miserable outside now. Daphne says, question of the week, organised, not in my vocabulary. But this is the thing. Like, I'm exactly the same. I'm either hyper organised or I'm like a bundle of chaos. There is no middle ground. So hopefully, Daphne, you and I will both learn something from today. That's my plan. Hello, Marie. I'm confused with my DNA. Oh no! I honestly ask some questions in the comments, because the people that people here watching today, the knowledge that they have between them is incredible. So please feel free to pop a question in, and we can hopefully get you some answers. Lee, amazing. It's in his name. I love that, Kim. I'm gonna make him a badge with that on. Oh. Jan says, why did I just wave at the screen when you said hello to me? I pictured it. It's fine. It's fine. But this is the thing about doing these Fridays lives is obviously you guys can all see me, and it's just, for anybody watching me from here, they just think I'm just talking to a screen. But then I've got all of you, but I can't see you. I can only read your comments. So hey ho. Lovely. Okay, right. We should probably crack on, because I have a lot of stuff to get through today. Shall we do some new records? Let me add my slides and change that. There we go. So yeah, we've got a lot. Oh, I swear I updated that. I've got another one with the right one on. Okay, what have we got new this week? Okay. We have around 30,000 new records for you to sink your teeth into over the weekend. So first up, we've got some New Zealand birth, marriage and death records. So we have updated our indexes with around 26,000 new records. And these are for the years 1924 for births, 1944 for marriages, and then 1974 for deaths. This is what one of the transcripts looks like. And you can order a certificate. There's a little arrow there that tells you where you can click the link if you need a certificate. And I couldn't actually remember if there were any overthrows, because overthrow is my maiden name, who went to New Zealand. But actually a quick search reminded me that there are actually two. There's a Mildred Overthrow, who was born in 1921, and a Douglas George, born in 1917, and he actually died there in 2004. So yeah, this is what the transcripts looks like. And in fact, Douglas George was actually born in Luton. I decided to, I allowed myself 2 minutes to just go down the rabbit hole, but 2 minutes was all I allowed myself. Yeah, he was born in Luton. He can be found in Essex in 1921 with his parents. They're visiting the Buchan family, I think. He married in Shropshire in 1941, and then the last one, bottom right-hand side, that's his passenger list record. He headed to New Zealand in 1954. Just an example of what you can do with those records. Next up, we've got some Irish records for you, and these are Limerick City and County electoral registers for the years 1761, 1768 and 1776. Now, what is pretty good about these records, and this was mentioned to me by Jen, they cover the run-up to the Revolutionary War period in the United States. So if you have an Irish ancestor who might have hopped over the pond around this time from Ireland, they might appear here. I did want to show you an example because there are 4 Walshes in these records. I do have Walshes in my family tree, and this is for a Pierce Walsh. It gives me his residence and his freehold property location, and it also tells me what this particular electoral register record was for. So it was for an election at St Francis Abbey on the 27th of May and ended on the 5th of June 1776. There we go. And then last up, we have some British India Office births, baptisms, marriages and deaths for you. There's just over 2,000 new records here across the 3 record collections, and they're all for the same year, and it's 1872. Now, I have 2 overthrows in these records. I went and looked in the baptisms. Yeah, so there were 2 overthrows in the births and baptisms. There is Leslie Edward Alfred, who was born in 1905, and then Iris Edna, born in 1912. Both of them were the children of Samuel Alfred and Mabel Harriet Overthrow. And Samuel was initially listed as an engineer and later as a driver, and I think he worked on the railways. So I'm going to come back to this later because I want to talk about these British India Office records in a little bit more depth. And for example, if this is your starting point in your family tree, I want to just show you the breadth and depth that you can get into when you start with these. So I'm going to use an example of Samuel, the father of these 2 children. Excellent. Before I move on to newspapers, there was just something I wanted to very, very briefly mention. And I wanted to mention this at the beginning, and naturally I forgot. So we're going to loop back to that before we do newspapers. So, little product update for you. If you recall, my colleague Lorna, Principal Product Manager, came on a couple of weeks ago and was talking about our new web home. So when you first sign in to Findmypast, that page there will soon, as of next week, we're going to start rolling this out to you next week in gentle increments. This new web home will be much more personalized to you and your research and your needs and things like that. So that is coming next week. Very, very exciting. We got it we've got staff accounts. So we got it in the staff accounts yesterday, I think, and it's going to be rolled out to you guys next week. So if there are any feedback on this, if you have any feedback, if there are any issues, as usual, please send it to support@findmypast.com, and then that will all be logged, tagged, and passed over to Lorna and her team. But yeah, we love your feedback. It helps us make our product better and your experience better. So yeah, that's just a little update on that. And then the second thing I wanted to say, you will remember that Martin and Chris, other product managers, have been on in the past to discuss a brand new newspaper feature called Collections. So this is almost ready, and the eagle-eyed amongst you might actually see it on Findmypast already. If you want to go and have a play, you didn't hear it from me. That is almost ready in its full version. So that's coming really soon, I think over the course of the next month or so. And basically what Liam and I want to do is we want to announce it with a bit of a bang. But what we want to do is we want to have like a really good theme for it. So is it a collection on like a major historical event? Is it a collection on a famous person, or a collection on some sort of movement? Like, are we talking like a royal coronation? Are we talking about the Titanic? Are we talking about Ernest Shackleton? Like, what would make you stop and go, I want to look at that? So the world is your oyster. Any and all ideas welcome, and I'll have a look at those, and hopefully Liam and I can find a really, really good theme for when we launch these collections to everybody, not just you guys, because I think it's only you that we've talked to about collections so far, so you're all well in the know. So yeah, that's my little ask. Okay, right, I can move on to newspapers now that I've done that. Excellent. Let me just scroll back down. Add my slides back. Wunderbar. Okay, lots of newspapers for you this week. There's 304,000 new pages. There's one new title, which is the Banbridge Chronicle, and we've got 22 updated titles. There's a long list here. I'm not going to read all of these out because naturally we'll just be here for like 15 minutes and I've got other things to talk to you about. But yeah, the full link is on to all of these is in the blog for this week, and Liam has probably already put a link in the chat is what I'm trying to say. And yes, Liam, of course, giving a little plug to our Historical British Newspapers Facebook group. If you're into things like that, history, newspapers, nostalgia, using newspapers for anything, whether it's family history, researching anything, like come and join. It's a lot of fun and we can give you some inspiration in there. Oh, I'm so excited to see that some of you have already been using collections. Yes, I'm so excited. And what you guys are seeing at the moment is that's the basic functionality of this feature. It's going to be shinier and better when we do the full launch. So yeah, I'm so excited. I don't even know if I'm supposed to be talking to you about this or not, but I don't care. Like, it's just you guys. It's fine. Lovely. This is fantastic. Okay. Heather saying, I've been using the collections function. I found it really useful. It's good to know that my clips won't get lost in case of my computer malfunctioning. Absolutely. I don't know if I'm even meant to be mentioning this either. I'm totally going to get told off for this. Product team, if you're listening, you're not listening, just switch off. This is just the start. There's more stuff like this coming. That's all I'm going to say. I'm going to get told off. Yeah, we won't tell anyone. Thanks, Liam. Thank you very much. Okie doke. Right. Let's do question of the week. Yes, I told you that I had an actual slide here. I just didn't update the first one. Oops. Okay, right. Let's do question of the week. So spring is in the air. How do you spring clean your research? What is your process for tidying it up and staying organized? Because me and Daphne need your tips. That's the idea. Okay, I'm going to scroll all the way back up and see what I can find. Okay. Janet says her tip is to go back through paperwork. Yes, I think that's a great idea because I have a terrible habit of when I order certificates, I look at them, I photograph them, and then they just go in a drawer, and they're in that drawer right there, and they're not in any folder. It's really bad. I'm terrible. I've got to say this. Helen says newspaper archives every day, but you have to be careful. Very addictive. Oh my gosh, they are. They're so. I could literally spend my. Oh, yeah. Moving on. Gina says when I get around to tidying up, it's by adding all my printed papers into appropriate folders and getting rid of all the scribbles after checking them through a few more times. This is great advice. I think folders are brilliant. And it's one of the reasons why I like this collections thing, because it's basically like folders for newspapers. I love it. And whether this is physical documents, like putting those in appropriate folders, having everything labeled, or whether everything is in folders on your computer, for example, maybe backing everything up. In my spare time, I am a fiction writer and I'm trying to get into the better habit of like backing my writing up, because I'm normally very, very bad at that, which is terrible. It's terrible to admit. Ross says, I always plan to organize my genealogy, but it never happens. Yeah, that's pretty much me. I'm really pleased I'm finding some kindred spirits in here today. Okay, right. Jean says, I'm never organized and always going down rabbit holes. Yeah, also me. Full of good intentions, but get waylaid by a link that leads me to finding more relatives. Yeah, I completely feel you on that. Apologies if my internet is failing a little bit. I've got a little thing that's telling me it's struggling. Okay, right. Let's try and find some more. Ellen says, organisation. The hub walking by chuckled at that. I make feeble attempts. I think mine would laugh at me as well for that. Oh, I'm terrible, honestly. Georgia says, from time to time, I go through all of my odd bits of paper and notes and try and sort them into a keep pile and a don't keep pile. The keep pile is always getting bigger. Yeah, but Georgia, the thing is, you are making a real concerted effort there, and I applaud you, and I wish I could do the same. We'll just put it that way. Gordon says, I add written notes to my database, add scans and downloaded records to my database, back up my database every week. Yes, this is what we all need to be aspiring to. Okay, this is what we should all be doing. Gordon for the win, everybody. Another good tip from David, recently started using Microsoft OneNote, created a page for each relative to store notes. I hope that this helps. I'm finding lots of info that I had forgotten about. Yeah, this is great. I've never tried Microsoft OneNote actually, so now I'm sort of thinking that I want to try it. I think that might be a Monday task for me when everybody else is off, apart from everybody who works in Scotland, like me and Liam. I think that's my task for Monday, because I think that could help with my work as well, not just research. Okay. Oh, Robin's going on a narrowboat holiday. Please, can you take me with you? I want to go. I've always wanted to go on a narrowboat holiday. That's complete side note. I used to work, I think I mentioned this a few times. I used to work at Henley Fort in Guildford when I was in my student days. And at one point, they decided over the summer that it was a good idea to bring me on onto the river and the canal, and we went on a narrowboat, and I had no idea what I was doing, but it was really, really good fun. Okay, scrolling on. Eileen, organisation, not my forte. I need prompting to do this. If anybody has any hints or tips. See, this is the thing. We are collectively learning. All of us beautifully disorganized people like me, like you, we are learning from the organized lot today. Organized people, I don't really know what you're getting from this other than maybe the moral high ground. I don't know. Oh, okay, scrolling. Okay, Matthew says, when looking at wills, I've discovered that I make a brief summary of each one. This is a great tip. One, that way I can have a short list of who is named and relationships included. Useful if the will is very long, yes, because some of them really are, and the handwriting is really hard to read, which is great for updating trees or taking out. That's really good, actually, because with a will, you know, sometimes there are multiple people mentioned in it, and sometimes it doesn't just need to be attached to the node of whose will it is, but the beneficiaries and executors and things like that. So that's really good. I like that. Okay, scrolling. Oh, Daphne. Headline newspaper stories to every night of the census. Liam, please write that one down. That one's beautiful. Love that. Thank you, guys. What is organising? I don't know the answer to this either, I'm afraid. That's why I'm reaching out to all of you. Excellent. Heather says, I bought special certificate folders with acid-free sleeves, and the same for photographs and notes, but there's still a massive amount to go through and write up. I applaud you. This is excellent. I think I need to do the same thing. I don't actually have that many certificates, though, to be fair. Researching my overthrows in particular is normally quite straightforward, because overthrows are, it's quite an unusual name. However, for Joneses, that needs certificates. Okay. Right, I think I'm up to date now. We all organise differently. Yes, some of us organise a lot. Some of us organise a little bit, and some of us organise not at all. Like me. No, that's probably a lie. I do organise a little bit. Like I recently went to visit my in-laws, and before I went away, I reorganised my entire desk and I cleaned it, and that's probably my way of organising things. And I reorganised all of my books. Priorities. Okay, Kim says, I have my research backed up on all the cloud devices as well as some physical copies in a file drawer, each labelled under their family surnames. Excellent. Sue, I can see Henley Fort from my flat. I've not been there in so long. When did I quit? I quit because I finished my master's degree and I was moving away, I think. Yeah, so I couldn't have carried on there. So that would have been summer of 2013, I think. But yeah, I miss it. It was so much fun. Okay, right. Those are some great tips, everybody. I feel inspired and reinvigorated to spring clean my research and get everything nice and organised, and naturally carry on using collections because they're that good. Honestly, I swear, I've spent my entire week in newspapers and collections. Okay. What was I going to talk about next? Oh yeah, we were going to talk about... Okay, a little bit of a how-to now. How to research an historical event using newspapers, okay? So I was sort of inspired to do this because I've been having to spend so much time in newspapers and collections this week. Some of the things I've been looking at have been historical events. I started to think about, like, what is the sort of process that I go through when I'm using newspapers in particular to document a historical event, okay? And I thought that I might be able to share some of that with you, and I hope that it might be useful. So I'm going to use a specific example, and it's somewhat relevant to my own family tree, and it's mining related. And given that many of us do have mining ancestors, I'm hoping the story at least might be relevant to some of you, but I think the methodology involved and the tips I'm hopefully going to share, I'm hoping that they're going to be useful to everybody here, because you should all be using newspapers for your family history. And if you are not already, you could go and sit on the naughty step. I'm totally joking. Or am I? So a little bit of background to this. So my auntie once told me, she passed a load of stuff over to me, that family history she'd already done. But in her notes, there was that my grandfather, his sisters and their parents moved from the Wrexham area in North Wales to Rhyl in North Wales, that's where I'm from, please don't hold it against me, in the 1930s. And she added a little note and it said, to get away from the mining industry. And I didn't really think too much about that. And it was only later, like years later, I think, that I read about something called the Gresford colliery disaster. And I asked, as you know, I went and researched it, and I sort of asked, is this why they moved? So Gresford is very, very near Wrexham. It's just on the outskirts. And given that my grandfather, I think he was in mining initially, but my great grandfather certainly was. Is this why they moved? So the Gresford mining disaster was 1934, and I think the family moved sort of 1936. So, and she wasn't sure anyway, and I've yet to sort of definitively prove that. But it was interesting because among the casualties of the disaster, there's a Gittins, and my 2 times great grandmother was a Gittins. And so I've still yet to put the pieces of this puzzle together. But I thought this would be a good example for us to go through together. And yeah, I apologize, Andrew, you're absolutely right. It is an infamous disaster. It's absolutely horrific. It's not it's not upbeat at all. But I will finish on something more upbeat, so we don't go into the weekend going, oh, I'm really depressed now because Ellie's talked about a mining disaster that killed over 200 people. We'll talk about something more cheery in a moment, I promise. Okay, so the Gresford disaster happened in the early hours, for those of you who don't know, of the morning of the 22nd of September 1934. It was a series of underground explosions and a fire. And I think after the rescue attempts and the people that were killed, there was something like 266 men died. And It remains to this day, I think, one of the worst coal mining disasters in Britain. And around 500 men, I think, were doing the night shift. And because of the explosions and the fires, some of them got trapped. And then volunteers were quite quick to go in and try and tackle the fire. They were trying to clear the debris to make space for them for the men to get out. But the rescue proved very, very difficult because of the fire, because of more explosions, because of carbon monoxide poisoning. It basically wasn't safe. And in the end, I think only 11 of the men, as in 11 bodies, 8 miners and 3 of the rescue team were ever recovered, I think. So yeah, it's pretty sad. And yeah, as I said, a lot of us have mining ancestors, and this is quite tricky to talk about, I think, but I hope that this will be useful anyway. I'm just wondering how many of you have stopped listening, given that I've started to talk about something sad, but actually there's about 150 of you watching, so hey ho. Okay, so I thought I would consolidate some advice. How do you go about researching an event like this in the newspapers? So this is what I do, and I'd be really interested to hear your thoughts and methodology so we can add to this. So the first thing I do is I think about the words and phrases that will have been used at the time. So they might not have called it the Gresford disaster. They might have called it something else. It will probably vary from newspaper to newspaper, and that will probably vary over time as well. So the words that they use around the event contemporarily might be one set of words, and then as time passes and as you know the event is researched and studied and written about more, then that evolves. One example I can think of where this is really, really relevant is the Wars of the Roses. Nobody called it that at the time, and you could probably say the same thing of the 100 Years' War. So that's something that's happened later. So if there were newspapers, there obviously aren't. If there were newspapers around in the 15th century and you were trying to find contemporary reports on the Wars of the Roses, if you type in the Wars of the Roses, you're not going to find anything. So bear that in mind. The second thing is to decide on your date parameters. So do you want to look at contemporary reporting, or do you want something shortly after, or do you want to look at many, many years down the line? Because these events aren't just talked about when they happen. A lot of these big events, they are talked about on anniversaries, if a film is made about it. So more happens later down the line, and you might find people who were involved at the time 80, 90 years later, maybe not 90, being interviewed about their experiences. There might be photographs that weren't published at the time but have since then come to light. So have a think about your date parameters that way. I quite like to start contemporarily. So depending on the year you're looking at, so we're talking 1930s here. So I kept my initial query to the week of the disaster, but because there were there was an inquest, and the mine I don't think was actually. I think there were sections of the mine that were still closed off something like 3 years later. But I found that by gently expanding my date parameters. Excuse me. This is what happens when I talk for too long. There we go. Okay. Next thing, a little hack to help you find photos. Okay, because I quite like looking at photos and illustrations. And there are some newspaper titles that we have in our newspaper archive that have more photos than others, or have really quite good quality ones because they've been scanned from paper rather than microfilm. So the certain ones I like to add in are things like the Illustrated London News, the Tatler, the Graphic, the Sketch, and the Sphere. Another good one that we've added recently is Country Life. That's quite image rich as well. So think about what titles you want to add. You might like to do a nice broad search because, with your locations, I would probably advise against, say if an event happened in Shropshire I would probably advise against putting your county as Shropshire or just adding all the Shropshire titles, because news wasn't just reported in your locality most of the time, particularly if it's a big event like this. It will have been reported across the country. I think I found some instances of the Gresford disaster, you know, in the far reaches of Scotland, as far down as Devon. So don't restrict yourself. I think if you're looking for something really, really particular, you can do it. But I think that comes to step 4 is keep refining your search criteria, to keep adjusting. Play around with your keywords, play around with your dates, play around with your locations and the titles you want to search. And yes, Daphne, I've grabbed your slide as I knew I wasn't going to remember. That's why I left it up for so long, just in case people wanted to screenshot it. So yeah, so those are probably my top 4 tips. And I wanted to put in a bonus tip here is create a collection. I probably am not going to stop talking about collections for a long while, just because I think for anybody using Findmypast, I think they're going to be a game changer for your research. I'm not going to mince words about it. That's why I keep talking about them. Create a collection, because you will be able to, if you're researching a particular historical event, you will be able to add anything you find into a collection, and it's all in one place. Okay. And there's going to be ways that you can reorganize that collection. So you can organize them from, you know, the date you added them, for example, or the earliest mention. And I think the plan is, I think I was speaking to Martin about this the other day, I think the plan is to be able to like drag and drop them into the order that you want. And that's all saved and it's all in one place. And it's almost like a mini history of that event. Again, you can use it for people as well, like people, you know, famous people who appeared in newspapers. So yeah, some tips for you there. Before I go on to what I found, I just want to read some of your comments. So Christine, good point here. People might want to remember that older newspapers were quite willing to put in details that we wouldn't expect to read now. There are a couple of accounts of horrible accidents that I can't unread. I did exactly the same this week, Christine. I was reading about, I can't remember. No, I can't remember what it was. It was, but it was awful. And it wasn't very nice. Proceed with caution, basically, when you're reading about events that might not be that nice to read about. Maybe don't do it just before you go into bed, and then treat yourself to a hot drink afterwards, perhaps. Heather says, our local newspaper has a regular feature, Memories of Yesteryear, so it's definitely good to be flexible on date parameters. Fantastic tip, Heather. And again, you could even search, you could add that into your search terms, into your keywords, like Memories of Yesteryear. Like if you know what your local newspaper called that particular segment, you can search by that and get all of them back. Gina says, I tend to highlight the dates so I know that I've already ordered the certificate. I think this is going back to research tips. Fantastic. Okay, wonderful. Okay, right. I just want to briefly talk to you about what I found, because I still have one more thing I want to get through today. Okay, so I found, so this one on the left-hand side, this was an article that I was actually searching for something else. So, okay, so it's actually searching for the history of Wrexham Association Football Club. And I found this. And this was actually quite shocking to me. So it mentions that there was a Wrexham football game on the next day, as in the day after the day of the Gresford disaster. And apparently there were many miners who wanted the day off to watch the match. So they were working overnight so they could go to the football the next day. So there were apparently, according to this report, many more miners on the night shift than there would normally have been, because they wanted to go to the football. And they didn't make it. And it's really sad. So yeah, that's that. I did find some photographs, and these are actually quite chilling to look at. This is taken while like rescue efforts were underway. the picture on the left-hand side really struck me because, you know, you can really see the sense of sadness in that rescuer's eyes, and he just looks exhausted. And then everybody else is sort of, you can tell that they're sort of frantically trying to communicate and things like that. And, you know, they've got like dirt smeared all over their face. And then for scale, on the right-hand side, you've got people who are gathered to wait for news of their loved ones. And I do, you know, I cannot prove this at all, but I wonder whether my family would have been there as well, because they would have known people here, and I wonder whether they would have come to help out. And then this one was quite cool. So this is taken from a plane passing overhead, and it just shows the size of the site of the mine. And this is, again, while rescue efforts were underway. And you can sort of see, I don't know if you can see my mouse here, but these are all crowds of people along here and here. And they're just waiting for news. And then, apologies for the quality of these ones, they're not so good. So the mine was closed off, as I said, all the sections of it were closed off for something like, I think about 3 years. Because they were worried that if they opened up those sections that they would cause another explosion. And at this time, 255 bodies of people that died there were still buried underground. And yeah, I think these two articles are from 1937, I think. And then the last thing that I wanted to show you that I found, so recently I learned that, although I don't remember seeing this in the news, or maybe it's just because I get Scottish news now because I'm in Scotland, and not Welsh news because I used to live in Wales. And William, Prince of Wales, I think, visited the site of the mine sometime last year, a couple of months ago. And Charles, when he was Prince of Wales, and Diana visited the mine as well, to pay tribute to those who died. And yeah, so, and just to finish up this little bit, the Gittins victim who died was John Henry Gittins. He was 42 and he lived in Wrexham. And my Gittins ancestor, my 2 times great grandmother, she's Mary Gittins, who was born in 1848. So I think there is a connection there, but I've yet to prove it. But tight-knit community. Even if I didn't have any ancestors who perished in this disaster, it would have affected my family because, yeah, this mining communities were quite tight. And yeah, I know it's very sad, but I hope that has helped you in a little way. If you do have any historical events that you fancy researching yourself, whether it's, I've mentioned the Titanic already, that's probably a good one, or a coronation, or, I don't know, D-Day, VE Day, anything like that, I'd be really interested to hear what you're inspired to make, to research and to make collections of. Like, I'm really interested to hear that. Okay, before I move on, let's have a look at some of your comments. Daphne says, should we be collecting major events that are happening now so the future family won't have to? Yeah, I don't think that's a bad idea, actually. Actually, have I got... My husband bought these when the Queen passed away. And we're sort of keeping these for future generations. Should probably put those away somewhere safer, really, than just sort of next to the printer. But hey-ho. Let's just have a scroll up here. Lovely. Okay, so last thing I want to talk about today, if you guys are happy for me to move on, is something a little bit more upbeat, hopefully, and again, something that hopefully is quite practical for you. So if you ever come across a relative or an ancestor in British India Office, like births, baptisms, marriages, deaths, etc., or wills and probate, I want to give you a little bit of an idea of the breadth of research you can do with this small amount of records. And particularly if this is your starting point with a particular family, or if you're brand new to family history, you can maybe use some of this methodology to help you start your tree, basically. So that's the plan. That's what we're going to do for the next 15 minutes or so. And then it's the weekend. I'm so excited. Okay. So you'll remember I showed you before that there in the births and baptisms there are 2 overthrows in there. So there's Leslie, Edward, Alfred, and then there is Iris, Edna. Both of those were the children of Samuel, Alfred, and Mabel, Harriet Overthrow, and I was able to deduce that by checking the original images and seeing the names of the parents. So pretty sure that we've got one little family here over in India. And I do think that Samuel was initially an engineer, and then he was a driver, and I think he worked on the railways over there. So the next thing I wanted to do after that, so I've got these 2 births/baptisms. I then wanted to go and have a look in the marriages. And there are 9 results for that. And we've got several results for Samuel here. We've got Samuel James A, Samuel James Alfred, Samuel Charles, Samuel A, Samuel Alfred, etc. So I started to wonder, like, are these all the same person, or are these just people with similar names? Because they seem to be marrying different people. So I then started the process of just analysing each one in turn and seeing what I could take from each of these. So this is the marriage of Samuel Alfred Overthrow to Mabel Harriet Bamford. This is in 1906. Yes. He's an engineer. They're living in Madras. And I also get the names of both of their fathers, so Alfred Overthrow and Robert Bamford. I get their ages, 30 and 22, and I get their condition, so their marital status. And the first thing that drew my attention here was Samuel is a widower. So this is not his first marriage. So that's immediately a clue for me. Next thing I wanted to look at is this one. So this is, so this is Samuel marrying Florence Carvalho, and this is in 1895. And again, I get their fathers' names, Alfred Overthrow and Alexandra Carvalho. They're in Calcutta at the time here. I can't quite read Samuel's profession at the time, but again, I get the ages and I also can get the conditions. So I get bachelor and spinster. So this is both of their first marriages. And then we've got things like, I always say this, never sleep on the witnesses of a marriage, because they could unlock so much, basically. So yes, so we've got 23-year-old Samuel and 19-year-old Florence. But there's a twist here, because as I continue to move through these records and trying to figure out if they are all my Samuel or different Samuels, I learned that there's another wife in between Florence and Mabel. So this is 1897. Samuel Overthrow, a widower, married Mary Grace Williams. And he's some sort of municipal sub-inspector. And they're in Bombay at this time. And again, his father is Alfred Overthrow. So I am pretty sure by this point, after comparing these 3 different marriages, that these are all for the same guy. So he first married Florence in 1891 and she died. Mary Grace Williams in 1897, she died. And then Mabel Harriet in 1906. And each time Samuel's father is listed as Alfred Overthrow. The ages match up roughly, as do the occupations. And as I continue to move through these, I also found a marriage for Mabel. So Mabel Overthrow, the third wife, she married in 1914. She was a widow at this point, so Samuel must have died, to Dennis Gately, and he's a railway employee. So again, they're in Bombay. Excuse me. So yeah, she remarried basically after her first husband died. They actually had 3 children, I found out, because I see this her surname's changed, and I want to know if she had any children. And she did. She had George, Walter, and Harold between 1914 and 1917. Their baptisms tell me that Dennis was also sort of in the railway business, the engineering business, and that he had once worked for HM Customs as a patrol officer. And then the last marriage that I wanted to show you is this one. So this is for Maisie Veronica Overthrow, who married Walter Leslie Marquis. And this is in June of 1929. Now, it tells me that her father is Sam Overthrow, deceased. So I do think that this is very likely to be a daughter of Samuel. And given that she was probably born in around 1908, I think that Mabel is probably her mother. But I couldn't find a baptism to clarify that. And as I start working through all of these, I start to think, we need a tree. Wouldn't you agree? We need to store everything in one place, and we need to visualize this a little bit more. So that's what I did next. I built the tree. And yeah, so you've got Samuel and his 3 wives, and then you've got Mabel's second husband and her children there. And I couldn't find any children born to Samuel and either of his first 2 wives. That doesn't mean that there weren't, but I just couldn't find any in the short space of time that I looked. Andrew, you are absolutely right. I should have started one earlier. I just got so obsessed with moving through all of these records. And suddenly I started to feel quite overwhelmed. And I was just like, I need the tree now. But you are right to start one earlier. Start one before I did. And then by using a combination of hints on the tree, because hints can throw up things that you maybe wouldn't think to search for. So always check your hints. A combination of hints and then more searches. So looking at overthrows in the deaths as well, in the British India Office deaths. I found, so Iris, who was born in 1912, she died in 1913. She was a year and 3 months old, and she died of smallpox. I told you this was going to be a little bit more upbeat, and I'm just going to tell you how all of these people died. I'm so sorry. Leslie was 6 months old when he died of double pneumonia, and it even tells me that he's the son of S. Overthrow, engine driver on the railways. So this is Florence here. This is the first wife. It says wife of Mr. Overthrow. She died of dysentery in 1895. She was apparently just 21 years old. And then we've got, I think, yeah, that's Mary Grace. She was 28 when she died of remnant fever. I can't really read that. Somebody else maybe will tell me. But what I found really interesting about this is that her occupation, it tells me that she was a pauper. Very strange. I want to look into that a little bit more. Like, why was she a pauper when she died? Like, why is it not telling me that she's the wife of Samuel Overthrow? And this is Samuel himself in 1913. He was apparently 36 years old. I don't know what this says here. If anybody can tell me what that says, it looks like an SPR something E to me, but I don't know. I did try and Google it, but I think I'm reading it incorrectly. So if anybody has seen that and they know what it is, I'd be really interested. And then what else have we got here? I need to cough again. I'm so sorry. This is what happens when I talk for too long. So the next thing I wanted to do here was find out a little bit more about Samuel's origins. I wanted to know, was he born in India? Did he move to India for work, etc.? And I did a little bit of digging, and because his birth year varies quite a bit on these records, I was searching quite broadly there to make sure that I didn't miss anything. And I knew his father's name, so that was really handy. So everything's a clue in this sorts of situations. So I could add Alfred to like things like 1881 census records. I could add Alfred to like a baptism, for example. So I settled on this. The bottom one, I believe, is him. This is a baptism for the year 1881. But it tells me that Samuel James was actually born in 1872, so much earlier, if this is indeed him, much earlier than what he would have us believe on his later records, which, you know, sort of say 1878, 1880, etc. Parents, Alfred and Anne. His father's a labourer. And interestingly, he was baptised along with two sisters, so Harriet Rebecca and Sarah Jane, and they're all living at Chapel Court, Suffolk Street, and I think that's in Gloucester. That then led me to the 1881 census, because naturally I've fallen down this rabbit hole now and I cannot stop, unfortunately. So we've got Alfred and Anne, we've got Samuel, Sarah and Harriet, and what I found really interesting from this is Samuel's mother, Anne, was born in New York. I don't think I've ever come across in my family tree before somebody who was born in New York. So I thought that was quite cool, and I really want to go find out more about her now. But a little bit of a spanner, because I found, did I include these? No, I didn't. No, that's it. Okay, I didn't include these. I'm so sorry. But I found marriage records for both of Samuel's sisters, Sarah and Harriet. And it tells me that their father is, well, it doesn't say that he's deceased, but then if I look and I find Anne in 1891, it tells me that she's a widow. So that either I've completely got my wires crossed and I need to go and find a little bit more about this, or there's something going on here, basically. And before, you know, I fell down the rabbit hole entirely. No, that's a lie. I've already fallen down. I did go and have a look in the newspapers to see if I could paint a picture of what Samuel's childhood was like in Gloucester before he went to India. And I found that Samuel's father, Alfred, he was a labourer. He appeared in newspapers several times. He sued clients for non-payment of his services. He sued somebody for punching him. And also, apparently, when Samuel refused to go to school. I found this one fascinating. And just said that the lad would not go to school. Well, it clearly didn't really do him much harm, because he ended up working halfway across the world on the railways. So there we go. I think that is everything I wanted to talk about today. And funnily enough, as I said before, when I first started this, I obviously knew they were an overthrow, but I didn't think that Samuel was on my tree. Samuel wasn't on my tree, but his dad was. So he is actually a distant relation of mine. Samuel is my second cousin, 4 times removed, according to our kinship calculator. There we go. And that is everything that I wanted to talk about today. There we go. Fabulous. I hope that was interesting / useful, one, the other, etc. I hope it was anyway. Okay, let's just before we finish up, because we've got 2 minutes. I want to have a look at some of your comments. Kim says, I remember in my search for my great-grandfather's birth, I researched around 100 men with the same surname and variations of the first name, plus or minus 10 years birth year, just to find he was using an alias. Excellent. But at least you got to the bottom of it, thanks to your perseverance there. I think that's half the battle with family history sometimes, is your perseverance. Like, keep going. Look at every single clue. Question when things don't add up, when they don't look right. Try and find out what is actually going on. Christine, you are absolutely right. If you're dealing with family trees, people are going to die. And yeah, it's just, you know, when I just sort of think I want to talk to you guys about something a little bit cheerier, but we are dealing with dead people. That is what genealogy is, right? So I don't think we'll ever be able to do a Fridays live without mentioning somebody that died. Unfortunately, I'm so sorry about that. Maybe we can try and not do that at some point. It'd be like a challenge. Wonderful. Okay. Oh, A few of you mentioned this. Thank you very much. Intestines unable to absorb nutrients from food. I've learned something new today. Thank you. Lovely, guys. Thank you so much for joining me today. And remember, hopefully we will have a very special guest joining Jen next week. And then we should have the product guys joining us the week after. Fingers crossed. Am I blushing? No, I just don't have any makeup on, Daphne. I just don't have any makeup on. This is just my natural face. Lovely. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody. Keep sharing your family history discoveries, and we will catch you next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.